start first?
I can start for the Kyoto.
Okay, Maria, thank you.
I'm Maria, nice to meet you all. So I co-directed the Kyoto together with Laura and Dafne, and the film comes from the master of the University of Copenhagen of Film and Media, and it's part of our master thesis in which we try to find ways to film documentary filmmaking and how to challenge the power hierarchies that there is in the documentary filmmaking. Yeah, and we found this story through Laura's family in Italy. So that was our inspiration, and then we started working.
And about your main character, about Ansu, did he agreed to be filmed right on? So, or there was some negotiations between you and him?
You want to go, Daphne?
Yeah. Yeah, we did have some negotiations actually all along the project. And it was a challenging process that, of course, depended a lot on his circumstances as a newly non-minor. And he really sought independence. He really sought also to share his experience with us, but at the same time, he couldn't help to also know his situation, and he had some fears about sharing his story, like being filmed on the street. So we had to be careful and gentle with the spaces we filmed, the people we talked about, and I think it was only fair that we respected his ongoing process of adapting to our story. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So maybe I should translate for Russian audience, and then we can go on, okay? Итак, значит, ответ заключался в следующем, что договорились сделать этот фильм изначально, что это была часть их магистерской работы в университете Копенгагена, и на главного своего героя Ансу они вышли через семью Лауры. Было много обсуждений с главным героем фильма о том, как фильм будет сниматься, о его роли. И авторы старались снимать в зависимости от обстоятельств, в которых был главный герой, старались быть осторожным с местами, которые они снимают, с людьми, с которыми они хотят поговорить. So maybe you would like to add something else?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but my connection was pretty bad. I don't know what happened, so I didn't really get the question. I'm sorry.
Well, the question was about the prehistory of your film. Okay. What comes before that?
Yeah.
So maybe you could tell us a few words.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell. I can tell you how we got to know Ansu, because I mean Ansu's story. Yeah. Like my father, as Maria said, he is also a legal tutor for unaccompanied minors, as Nikla is. So he knew Nikla, and of course then I met Nikla through him, and we all met Nikla, and then Ansu. And I think all the people there that knew Ansu, they were telling us that he had something very particular and very special. So, and they were suggesting us to tell his story, which I think was reflected, especially in the way he used the camera himself. I think he was really, really good at filming himself, at telling his story while he was recording himself, or the places he visited, he was living in.
So was it your idea to give him himself to give him a camera to shoot?
Yeah, it was our idea. Yeah, it was because we thought that we should give him some authority and some power, if you want, so he could tell his story on his own terms. And I mean, we wouldn't impose so much our European and privileged view upon him.
Okay, thank you. Так, Лаура нам поведала о том, что она познакомилась с Ансу через своего отца, который, в свою очередь, знал Никлу, то есть женщина, которая дала комнату Ансу. И все, кто был знаком с Ансу, говорили, что в нем есть что-то особенное, в его истории есть что-то особенное, и все советовали... И вот эти эпизоды, которые Ансу снимал сам, это была идея авторов дать ему камеру, чтобы он мог сам посредством этого тоже попытаться как-то рассказать свою историю. Okay, so now César Colmant with his film Eaten by Fire.
Yes. So yeah, where to start? So the idea came out first. Originally, I was traveling through Vietnam with my father, and it was a bit like walking in the path of my parents because they've met there, and then here I am. And so when they were there, when they were young, they met a young French / Benar guy. So Benar is the ethnic minority where I shot my film, and it was the first time for him in the 90s that he was coming back to Vietnam after he was extracted from Vietnam when he was 12 by French missionaries. And so they've met, and that's how François Xavier became my godfather. And I had very little contact with him throughout my young life. And it's only later when I visited Vietnam that I had the opportunity to meet him and to visit that community. And I was already studying anthropology, and I thought, like, this is a very interesting topic for research and for a film, especially because of my own positionality in that community, because he's my godfather, and for them, in the local culture, godfathership is a very important. It's a very strong link, but at the same time, so I'm kind of part of the family, but I'm also a complete foreigner who doesn't know the cultural codes and doesn't know the language. So yeah, I found it very interesting to explore this positionality and this relationship I had with them in that context. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Итак, идея съемки фильма пришла, когда я путешествовал по Вьетнаму со своим отцом. Мои родители встретились там, когда они были молодыми. И основная тема – это народность Бахнар во Вьетнаме. И главный герой – это как раз вот человек, который в 90-е годы вернулся во Вьетнам, и он стал крестным отцом моим. Значит, затем я посетил Вьетнам позднее и уже встретил его, этого человека, своего крестного отца. У меня была определенная своя позиция в этом сообществе, потому что крестный отец для местных – это довольно такая важная фигура. И одновременно я был как бы и частью семьи, и самым настоящим иностранцем, который ничего не знал о местной культуре.
Продолжая разговор про фильм, сколько времени заняли сами съемки, как распределялись обязанности вот у наших 3 режиссеров, и кто снимал фильм, вот, был ли Сезар сам оператором этого фильма?
So the question is, how much time does it take to film all your pictures, and especially the question for Laura, Daphne, and Maria. So your positions in this film, your occupations. So what about you? And a question to César: did you film all by yourself, or someone helped you?
For us, it took, I think we filmed for 2 weeks, so not that long, but because Ansu filmed himself, it was a longer process of checking his material and editing, especially. I think we were editing for like 3 months, maybe even a bit longer. Yeah, because there was a lot of material that Ansu had filmed himself when we were in Denmark and he was in Italy. Yeah, and if one of you want to answer the other one, Laura or Daphne, the other question.
Yeah. So in terms of our capacity, like our positions, we had a very from the beginning, we shared a lot of the responsibility and the agency in terms of like how to approach the narrative and so on. But at the same time, we had a lot of tasks. So we divided also our roles, and I was the cinematographer. Maria had more of a like production role, and Laura also more of an editing role, even though, again, as I said, we were very much connected and we shared a lot of the decisions. So maybe Laura can say something else if you like.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much summed it up. But yeah, I think from the beginning we decided it was like a very collective project, so we would share ideas and take decision all together. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Так, съемки фильма заняли порядка 2 недель. Очень много снимал Ансу, отснял очень много материала, а вот монтаж и редактирование фильма заняло чуть более 3 месяцев, потому что главным образом из материала Ансу приходилось отбирать очень много. Перед нами стояло много задач, снимала в основном Дафне, Мария занималась больше продакшеном, и Лаура монтажом и редактированием фильма. Мы много обсуждали свои действия в процессе съемки, но мы изначально решили, что это будет такая общая работа, и мы будем постоянно делиться друг с другом нашими идеями. Okay, César, what about you?
So the filming process, the shooting of the film lasted for 3 months, because that was the available dedicated time during the master to do it. But initially, I also wanted to film part of the film in France. So I wanted to film half of it in Vietnam and half of it in France. But because of COVID, I wasn't able to go to France and do the second part. So I had to edit with just what I got, because the idea was really to put in parallel the life of this community in Vietnam and the life of their relatives in France, and how do they interact, and how do they visit each other and everything, and my own position within that. But that wasn't totally doable, but I'm still planning to do it maybe later. Yeah, and I don't know, I think there was a second sub-question. If I filmed everything myself, yes.
Yes.
I did, and I did the editing also. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Так, процесс съемки фильма занял 3 месяца. Это время, которое уделялось в магистратуре для этой задачи. Я изначально хотел снять одну часть во Вьетнаме, одну часть во Франции, но из-за пандемии я не смог отснять часть как раз во Франции. И я работал только во Вьетнаме, показывал жизнь этого. Пытался выразить свою позицию в этом сообществе. Но ту часть, которую я планирую снимать во Франции, я планирую доснимать дальше, наверное, уже в этом году. И отвечая на второй подвопрос, Сезар отвечает, что да, я и сам снимал, и сам редактировал этот фильм.
И тоже вопрос ко всем авторам. Видели ли герои окончательную версию фильма и какова была их реакция?
And one more question to all the authors. Did your main characters of your film saw this final result, and what was their opinion about the film, their reaction?
Yeah, so we, of course, both Ansu and Nikla viewed the final version of the film. And I mean, Nikla told us she was very moved and she really liked, I mean, she could really feel the story, and she was very moved by it. Ansu, I mean, he liked it, but I think he also expected it to be much longer because we were with him, like for 3 weeks we were with him filming, and he also knew he shot a lot with his camera. So when we showed it to him, he was like, yeah, it's pretty cool, but it's very short. So yeah, but I think he also liked it, and he liked it to see himself and to see the final result.
Thank you. Так, Ансу и Никла видели финальный результат фильма. Никла была очень тронута этим фильмом, и он очень сильное впечатление на нее произвел. Она прочувствовала всю идею. Ансу тоже понравился фильм, но он ожидал, что фильм будет гораздо объемнее, гораздо больше, так как он сам много наснимал. И в конце, когда ему показали уже итоговый результат, он сказал, что ну а почему так коротко, ведь столько же материала было снято. Okay, César?
Yeah, so I had quite different protagonists, and not all of them have seen the film, although I gave them the opportunity, but some didn't watch it. So I think the reaction, yeah, it's very different. Like, for example, for the elderly couple in the film, who are the parents of my godfather, so my grandparents, their knowledge of films in general is really limited to very like Catholic films, like telling stories from the Bible and stuff like that. So for them it was really strange. I think they find it really funny to see themselves on the camera, but I'm not sure they really understood why I did it or how come. Also the language barrier is an obstacle. Then I think for a lot of Banars from France, they enjoyed that their culture and also the problems that are taking place over there with their communities in terms of land rights and property and stuff are highlighted. But strangely also people who are caring about these issues in Vietnam and who are living in Vietnam, they were also a bit critical towards the film, saying like stuff like, like a film from a foreigner cannot change anything here. And I mean, to the best, it doesn't do any, it doesn't have a negative impact, but in the worst situation, it can have bad impact on them. So yeah, I was also careful not to hurt anybody in the film or to put them at risk with the political authorities over there. So yeah, that was more or less it.
Thank you. Ну, в моем случае ситуация была немножко другая. Было много довольно героев, кто-то из них видел фильм, кто-то нет. Реакция также была очень разная. То есть, например, родители моего крестного, им было очень забавно смотреть на себя на экране, но, на мой взгляд, они не совсем поняли вообще, для чего я снимал этот фильм. Французской же аудитории фильм понравился, понравилась культура, которую я показал в фильме, понравилось то, как я выразил проблемы местного населения. Что касается вьетнамской аудитории в основном, то было довольно критическое отношение, потому что, ну, главным было то, что они говорили, что фильм от иностранца вряд ли что-то может изменить в наших обстоятельствах, а может быть даже и сделать хуже может. Вот, но в любом случае, когда я снимал, я старался никого не задеть и никому не сделать как-то хуже своим фильмом.
Ну и, наверное, продолжая рассуждение Сезара, как вы думаете, ваш фильм действительно что-то изменил в жизни ваших героев? Если да, то каким образом?
Mm-hmm. So, and one more question to César. In your opinion, did your film change something in the life of local people in better way, or not?
No, I don't think it has any real impact on the situation there. Or, I mean, yeah, Vietnam is not a very democratic country, and indigenous people have been, like discriminated against for the last 40 years. And I mean, yeah, a film is not going to change that. Also, the audience of the film is not really oriented to be distributed or shared in Vietnam, especially. It's more, yeah, it's more towards, let's say, academic audience and Western audience. So no, I don't think my film had any impact on their lives. Not yet.
Okay, thank you. Я думаю, что нет, фильм вряд ли смог оказать какое-то влияние на ситуацию во Вьетнаме, потому что, ну, как нам известно, что Вьетнам не очень такое демократическое государство, и коренные нехорошо себя чувствуют. Да и дело в том, что аудитория фильма как бы не очень заинтересована в том, чтобы менять там какую-то ситуацию в Вьетнаме, потому что аудитория фильма — это в основном академические круги из западного научного сообщества.
Я, наверное, не совсем точно выразилась, я скорее имела в виду, изменилось ли что-то в жизни героев вот самих, не сообщества в целом, и этот вопрос к девушкам тоже. Ну, то есть вот каким образом он повлиял, фильм, на жизнь своих героев.
Did your film influenced on the life of your main characters? So this question to all the authors.
I think in the process of doing the Chioto, it had an influence, at least in that moment, or it helped a little bit Nikla understanding certain things of Ansu, and Ansu maybe a little bit of Nikla, or trying, like it's a trial also to find a common language, the film. So I don't think that in the long term it had a big effect, but I think in the process some things happen for both characters personally.
Mm-hmm. Maybe Laura, Dafne would like to add something?
I mean, I think, as Maria said, they, while we were filming, they understood each other a bit more. Also, I think we were like something like, I mean, we became like a bridge so that Ansu could tell us a bit about Nikla that he wouldn't directly tell to Nikla, and the same with Nikla and us. And I also think maybe this filming himself and reflecting on his story helped Ansu, I mean, helped him somehow to express some feelings, some thoughts that he had and he had never shared with anyone. But yeah, as also Maria said, I don't think in the longer term it helped a lot.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Can I add something? Okay, no.
Of course.
Yeah, I think also the limitation of time we had during the filming process made it a bit difficult to actually have a bigger impact, because in the end we were only 2 weeks, like physical weeks there, plus the time he filmed himself. And I think the time you need to get to know a person, to adapt to its rhythms, takes way longer. So in that sense, we had also an obstacle there, but also the obstacle of the language. Like, we didn't share a language, but his language was also not his mother tongue. Like, the language we share, at least for Laura, it was, because we talked in Italian, but for the rest, he was talking in a language he was not his mother tongue, and for the rest of the team as well. So there were a lot of loopholes, and I think missing points at the same time. So I would have loved to stay longer and to kind of build a, I don't know, more intimate relationship, to kind of get to know him better, I think.
Okay, thanks. Я думаю, что в процессе съемки, да, фильм как-то повлиял на наших героев, главным образом на Никлу и Ансу. Я думаю, что это помогло им лучше понять друг друга, но не думаю, что это как-то повлияло на их дальнейшую жизнь. Лаура говорила о том, что этот фильм явился как бы неким мостом между Ансу и Никлой, потому что в процессе съемок они говорили с авторами о таких вещах, о которых они, ну, в общем-то, не говорили друг с другом. А также вот этот процесс съемки Ансу, когда он снимал себя самого, это помогло ему главным образом, потому что он много рассуждал, пытался каким-то образом выразить свои мысли, которые он на протяжении долгого времени обдумывал и ни с кем ими не делился. И Дафна добавила то, что было довольно сложно создать какое-то серьезное влияние на героев, потому что съемки происходили всего 2 недели, а это слишком мало, чтобы хорошо понять человека. И к тому же существовали еще определенные языковые преграды между авторами и Ансу. Окей. César, what about you?
I'm not really sure what could be the impact on my protagonist, but I think part of my intention with this film is to bring the diaspora, so the Banars from France, to realize somehow the power and the influence they have on their communities over there. And their agenda is pretty much set up around 2 main topics. One is the preservation of the traditional culture, and the other one is development, right? They want to help the people over there to strive and to find their place in the Vietnamese society, which has been rejecting them. And those 2 objectives can sometimes be, contrary and very difficult to conceal. And I hope my film in somehow can help them to reflect on that, or I don't know exactly, but I think that's an important question to ask. And I think at some point in the film, I'm interviewing the priest, and he's saying like, okay, there's some parts we should keep of tradition and some parts we should not. But who has the agency to decide that? Is it him, or is it the community as a whole? And how the power relationships that diaspora have with their kins in Vietnam is influencing those decisions and how they're made. So that's what I tried to bring as an external gaze. And I hope next time we see each other, we can discuss that. Yeah.
Me too. Так, я не уверен, что мой фильм оказал какое-то влияние на представителей местных сообществ, но двумя главными задачами фильма было, во-первых, цель на сохранение традиций, и второе на развитие вот этого региона, который я показывал. И во многом это являлись противоположными вещами. И в каком-то смысле я надеюсь, что эти люди, они смогут обдумать вот эти две позиции. И в фильме также был один эпизод, интервью со священником, когда, в общем-то, он задает вопрос, а кто решает, кто должен решать, что должно превалировать, да, сохранение традиций или все-таки развитие. Вот. То есть это тоже такой вопрос к нам, вопрос к аудитории. Вот что я хотел показать своим фильмом.
Видели ли вы фильмы друг друга? Если да, то есть ли у вас вопросы, может быть, друг к другу?
So, did you watch each other's films? And if you have, so you are welcome to ask.
I can start.
Okay, please.
So I watched your film, and I was really really positively amused because I actually directed a film that is very similar a few years ago. Also with a family where mostly the mother. I mean, she describes it as a maternal love at first sight when she met that refugee. His name is Abdul, and it's a very similar story in a way. Like it's kind of an adoption, but it's not really an adoption because it's not made in paper. But it's really like the commitment of a lady to help this young person. And I really liked the part where he's filming himself. That's an idea I had for the other film, but it didn't work out. So I'm glad it worked out for you. And yeah, I think it's a very nice film. I just wanted to know, so on some parts, it feels like he's filming like the sea and the shore or something like that. And then there is also his voice, and he's explaining about his journey, about different stuff. And I was wondering if he said that while he was filming, or if it's like an added layer of audio from an interview or something that you added.
Okay, so maybe I should firstly translate it to Russian audience, okay, and then you can answer. Значит, я посмотрел фильм 18, и он произвел на меня очень позитивное впечатление. Я видел не так давно очень похожий фильм на похожую тему про вот такую некую материнскую любовь, очень похожая история. В этом фильме сам снимал. Я тоже хотел это сделать в своем фильме, но это не сработало. И вопрос был в том, что эпизод, где он снимает море, там несколько другой звук, и как бы вопрос в том, что он отправил этот материал раньше, чем вы монтировали, то есть ну, несовпадение как бы аудио и видео рядов. So, your answer?
It was an added layer, actually. Yeah, we started playing a lot with the dialogues, with the footage we had from him and what we shot, and adding some extra audio layers to kind of create this flow of information. So we thought it was nice and it fitted, but it would have been great if it was actually recorded at the moment, but it just didn't fit it. So we created it ourselves. Yeah.
But sometimes also it was when he was recording, he was saying these things. It's just that maybe we put it with another image that he recorded. And a few times it was actually the moment. It depends on the part of the film. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Да, дело в том, что мы много работали с анситянтом материалом, и вот в этой сцене, когда он снимает около моря, мы действительно туда подложили немножко другой звук под это видео. И добавили еще в ответ, что когда Ансу снимал себя, то зачастую звук из этих записей был совмещен с другими кадрами видео. То есть такое тоже бывало.
I have not watched the other film. I'm sorry. I don't know about Laura and Daphne.
Yeah, I just came back this afternoon from a research trip, so I still haven't watched any films, but I'm very curious and I'm going to watch it as soon as possible because it seems great.
Окей, you're welcome. Лаура только вернулась днем из своего полевого исследования, поэтому она еще ничего не видела, но очень любопытно посмотреть.
I also haven't had the chance to watch it, but I did watch the trailer and I've like sneaked into Google search and tried to find you and stuff. And I was wondering you've mentioned a bit like in the introduction today, but I was wondering how it was for you to actually communicate with this group, this community, because I assume you had some insights or some extra knowledge having some family members in the zone, but how is it? Like, did you communicate in French or did you know a bit? I don't know, I'm a bit confused how this process went.
Ну, вопрос заключался в том, что как вы главным образом общались со своими участниками фильмов? Вы на французском говорили или вы знаете местный язык?
Okay, so yeah, actually, language was a very a central topic to the research because so the elders, most of them, they can speak French at least a little bit because of colonialism and the conversion to Catholicism. The youngsters, some of them speak a little bit of English, and then everything in between in terms of age is just speaking the local language. I took a few lessons before going, but it was more just to have, like basics just for ice breaking, but I knew that I would not be able to manage to master the language. But what I ended up developing as a strategy to cope with that was that I was filming a lot. I was filming all the time, and I was filming a lot of discussions I couldn't understand between them. And then later on, I had to translate everything with a translator, with the aid of a translator. And it makes the process quite different than if I could understand, because sometimes, they knew that I don't understand, so they would speak very freely to each other. And some of them were not totally aware that, there might be a chance that I would translate it later. Yeah, but the main characters they knew, but sometimes people who were incidental, they didn't know. And then the editing process was just like opening gifts at Christmas. You don't know what you got. You just translate it and then you see.
Thank you. Ну, язык – это вообще главная тема этого фильма, но старики в основном говорили на французском, еще знали его со времен колониализма и католических миссий во Вьетнаме. Молодые люди немного разговаривали на английском, но главным образом на своем местном языке. Перед поездкой я немножко учил вьетнамский язык, но приобрел только базовые знания, которые, в общем-то, не очень помогли. Но главное было то, что я постоянно снимал очень много, и потом уже в процессе монтажа и редактирования фильма я сидел с переводчиком, который мне помогал все переводить. Ну и, кстати, то, что я не знаю язык, довольно помогло мне, потому что люди, которых я снимал, говорили довольно свободно, осознавая, что я не понимаю язык и вряд ли когда-нибудь вообще смогу перевести то, что они говорят. И редактирование фильма вместе с переводчиком — это было как будто открываешь рождественский подарок, сюрприз, и никогда не знаешь, что тебя там ждет.
очень интересная аналогия с рождественским сюрпризом. На нашем, ну это не вопрос, скорее такое замечание. На нашем фестивале будет фильм «Материалы экспедиции», который построен как раз на аудиозаписях экспедиции Гарднера 50-х годов в Папуа-Новую Гвинею. И это тоже было таким открытием такого контекста этой экспедиции и характера, что ли, ее участников.
So this is very interesting analogy with the Christmas present, because in our main program we have the film Expedition Notes. I think it is the title of the film.
Expedition Context.
Expedition Context. So this is the audio film about Gardner's expedition to Guinea in 50s. So this was also like a kind of a discovery, like a surprise. So you are welcome also to shoot, to look, to watch this film in the main program.
Есть вопросы у Саши и у Ромы?
У меня есть. Давай, Саша.
Да, Ром.
У меня есть небольшой вопрос.
Давай.
Hello. Thank you very much for your films. I have a question to you, maybe for our viewers. You can share your experience. What have you learned while you were making your film? Maybe from professional point of view, like what professional knowledge you got, or maybe on the topic of your film, that maybe you learned something new while during the investigation of this problem, like migrants or like fighting with between tradition and modern world in César's film. So if you may share with our audience with your experience. Thank you. Ну, вкратце я переведу, что я просто попросил поделиться опытом, который они приобрели во время фильма, может быть, профессиональным с точки зрения съемки, либо чем-то, они что-то новое узнали о теме, которой они посвящают свой фильм.
Yeah, I mean, on the topic we wanted to focus on, I think what I learned, or we learned, was that there's a really fine balance between there's a really fine balance when you go and film someone who is not as privileged as you. So you have to understand his position, you have to understand what he thinks, what risks you can put them into, but also at the same time, I mean, you are the author of the film, so you cannot just depend on what he requires to you. So it's a really fine balance between your power and his power, like the subject power.
Я могу перевести вкратце, что вот Лаура, просто для нее это был баланс между как бы привилегиями автора фильма, который находится в более таком привилегированном положении по отношению к, скажем, по сравнению с мигрантами. И это всегда тонкий баланс. С одной стороны, он более привилегирован, а с другой стороны, он не должен нарушать какие-то границы, переходить вот в этих отношениях. Okay, thank you. Maybe someone else?
Yeah, like to add that I think we also learned that if someone has never made a film or been part of a documentary, even though they say yes in the beginning, they might not understand how many hours it's going to be that you're going to follow them. Like how much you have to film in order to have a little piece afterwards edited. So yeah, to make that very, very clear, or that people will not know that if they have not worked in films previously. Yeah, I think we also experience and then learn from that.
Окей, thank you. Мария, значит, говорит, что то, что она узнала или поняла для себя, что это очень опасно или непредсказуемые последствия, когда вы просите снимать для фильма новичка, который в этом не разбирается и который в итоге, может быть, не понимает немного специфику и готовит очень много там материала, вот как в их случае, много часов видео, которые невозможно было использовать. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to add a tiny thing. Oh yeah.
Well, yeah.
Dafne would like to add something.
Yeah. I think for me and for us, I think for all of us, it was also this idea of like, it's basically what documentary is about, right? Like not having a very too rigid structure and having to flow with the events on how they unfold. And we learned a lot about what we wanted to portray and then how things happen and what we actually could portray with the events that we could attend in a way. And we had to become very flexible. And yeah, also this thing of like representation, like how to represent him in a way that it's ethical, that he would actually be okay with. So that was a challenging process, but I think it was a very nurturing one.
Thank you. I will translate. Дафна говорит, что одной из вещей таких это то, что фильм не является жесткой структурой, закрепленной, фиксированной, и нужно быть готовым к тому, чтобы адаптироваться к обстоятельствам, то есть как какой-то поток, которым нужно управлять. Ну и также этическая сторона для нее важна была, что соблюдение вот этой каких-то этических норм при взаимодействии с героем. Thank you. César, do you have something to share?
Yeah, I think what was the most instructive for me researching like cultural preservation and modernity was that so these two concepts are always in tension, but then it brings us to the very fundamental question of anthropology and what is culture in the end. And when we talk about cultural preservation, is what aspect of culture are we willing to preserve or not? And this question was present in all the different actors of that region concerning the Banar culture, because, for example, the Vietnamese state, they're very happy about preserving cultural dances, music, costumes, and stuff that can be marketed for tourism, for inside tourism. Actually, it's Vietnamese tourism that goes there mostly. But then for the and I would say that the diaspora has a kind of a similar understanding of what is culture and what needs to be preserved. But for example, traditional agriculture, which I think is really important really important part of culture, is kind of disregarded because it's much more a political issue because of the land issue and the states that is taking over the land, and so that part is not really mentioned. And but I think also being like in such an intimate setting where I'm like living with a family, it's also about introducing like modern ties between family members through the means of capitalism and money, because when your uncle from France is hiring you to work in the fields for him, then it also transforms the relationship you have together as a family. And so it's kind of modern, but it's also putting at stake like traditional values of the family. And so, yeah, I think in my conception before doing this research, like culture or cultural preservation and modernity were two concepts that are opposite and very distinct. And then in the end, in practice, I realized that it's all intertwined and mingled together. Yeah.
Thank you, César. I will translate also. Ну, Цезарь говорит, что, ну, конечно же, это фундаментальные вопросы противостояния традиции и современной цивилизации. Ну, достаточно важный, и это вопрос тоже обсуждения, вопрос, какие аспекты культуры нужен, большой вопрос, какие аспекты нужно сохранять, какие должны быть сохранены, какие не должны быть, что об этом думают сами представители культуры. Они, например, с радостью, ну, ценят музыку, костюмы, и это все используется в туризме. Также, например, такой важный вопрос, как агрикультура, которую Цезарь в данном случае считает частью традиционной культуры, он сейчас политизирован и, соответственно, ну, как-то более относится, ну, то есть он тоже вот политизирован и, соответственно, осложняется этой ситуацией. И также вот там есть своя специфика отношений между французами и вьетнамцами, и когда семьи совмещенные, и французский родственник, например, оплачивает труд своих вьетнамских родственников, это тоже определенная специфика этих отношений. Вот. Но в целом, как бы, этот вопрос взаимодействия культуры традиционной и современной цивилизации очень важный. Спасибо. Thank you. And maybe Alexander, you will continue.
Okay, thanks. And so our also common question for all the authors, what about your plans for the future? Maybe you now have some ideas about your future films, next projects, and so on.
I'm currently working on a documentary, and yeah, so it's just in the development phase. So that's, yeah, I'm working in a new film. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also working on a new project. It's also a documentary project, and maybe it's gonna happen, and it's gonna be about a photographer in Sicily. So I'm still, yeah, writing the subject and developing it.
I've been working with cinematography in different projects, but they have finished, so I'll report with some projects new soon when they come.
Окей, thanks. Ну вот, три наших автора сейчас все работают над новыми проектами. Мария над новым документальным фильмом, Лаура над новым документальным проектом о фотографии в Сицилии, и Дафне работает сейчас над несколькими сразу проектами в кино и надеется, что они в скором времени уже будут закончены. César, what about you? About your plans for the future?
Yeah, actually, I have a new project starting very soon, and I'm really excited about it. So it's a project of collaborative cinema with a group of youngsters here in Brussels that are between 14 and 20 years old. And it's gonna be, so the idea is that I'm just gonna give them tools and knowledge so that they can make their own film. But they have no knowledge of cinema at all. They just like to make videos with their phones. And apparently they want to do a horror movie. So that's going to be interesting.
Thanks. Ну, сейчас я начинаю, в скором времени начну работать над новым проектом, который мы будем снимать в Брюсселе с подростками от 14 до 20 лет. Идея заключается в том, что я хочу им дать определенные знания по кинематографу, потому что они ничего об этом не знают, они просто любят снимать на свои мобильные телефоны, и они хотят снять фильм ужасов. Я думаю, что будет интересно посмотреть на то, что у них получится.
Наверное, мы будем завершать нашу дискуссию. И, конечно же, я бы хотела еще раз поблагодарить авторов за их прекрасные фильмы, которые украсили наш конкурс дебютов. И я надеюсь, что к следующему фестивалю они снимут новый фильм, и мы включим их в нашу основную программу и встретимся в Москве уже вживую, а не онлайн.
Okay, so we should finish our discussion for today, and we all would like to thank all the authors for their films, which they contributed to our festival, and we really hope that next time, in our next festival, you will also give us your new films, and we will meet not online, but live here in Moscow.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope so too.
Many, many thanks for your films.
Thank you.
Many thanks, and congrats to Alexander and Roman for translating everything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Okay,
Bye.
goodbye.
Have a nice evening.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.